An horrific attack on a rice farm in northeastern Nigeria that's left scores of people dead. The bodies of 43 farmers were yesterday laid to rest in the northeastern Nigerian village of Zabarmari. About 30 of the men were beheaded in the attack. Dozens are still missing, and residents fear that as many as 70 could be dead, whilst others put the death toll at around 110. While there was no immediate claim of responsibility, such massacres have been carried out in the past by militant group Boko Haram or Islamic State. For more on this, I'm now joined via Zoom from Brussels by the Director of Operations for Europe and the Middle East and North Africa region at the Institute for Economics and Peace, Serge Stroobants. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me.
How much do we know about what happened in northeastern Nigeria?
Well, actually, I guess the reports are still coming in, but it's pretty clear that this has been a massive attack on innocent people in northern Nigeria over the weekend.
Do we know what, I mean, no one's claimed responsibility as far as we understand, but speculation is that it has the hallmarks of Boko Haram. And one guesses that perhaps they're the only real militant grouping in the area.
Well, when you look at this area, there is clearly a potential clash between two major groups, Boko Haram being the first one and also the most prolific in this part of Nigeria. And on the other hand, you have this Islamic State in Western Africa province, ISWAP, that is also competing, I would say, with Boko Haram in this region. But it is clear when you look at the attack that this has all the marks from one of both terrorist groups.
Why has this, I won't say been allowed to carry on, but clearly the authorities have struggled to manage the militants in this part of the country. Why is that?
Well, actually, when you look at the broader picture, there has been a steep decrease in the impact of those terrorist groups in Nigeria since the peak in 2014. And this is following a worldwide trend. Now we have seen changes in the past year. So when you look at the figures for Nigeria coming out of our Global Terrorism Index, you will see a decrease in 39% of the number of deaths, but you will also see a decrease by 27% of the number of incidents. That is not valid for Boko Haram. So the main drive for this significant drop in the impact of terrorism in Nigeria is attributed to lower levels of violence between different Fulani groups. For Boko Haram, it's completely different. There you see an increase in the number of deaths by 25%, but also an increase in the number of incidents by 30%. And if you think back of an attack that occurred in 2019 at a funeral in Badu, in Borno State, where 70 people have been killed, this new attack reminds us of the attack at the funeral last year.
One would think that ideologically Islamic State and Boko Haram are on the same page, but they're competing, you say?
Well, you clearly see this is one of the results or one of the main findings of the Global Terrorism Index for this year. We have seen that in 2019 there has been a shift from the center of gravity of the Islamic State towards sub-Saharan Africa, and different groups having different backgrounds and different allegiances also are present on the ground. And in some parts of sub-Saharan Africa, also in Nigeria, these different groups can somehow compete with each other to be the most influential one in one of the regions concerned.
Is there any explanation why they target civilians in this way? And beheading is the most brutal form of attack.
Well, I guess it's also a competition or almost an escalation in cruelty. This is part of, I would say, the message that they would like to bring across. And it's always like, innocent civilians, people that are not really involved in the communication that should exist between a terrorist group and a government, that are targeted just to create an impact that would find place with a government, or at least people that are also engaging in the same region.
The name is given Islamic State, and it creates the impression that there is a large organization that controls these various groupings. But they do operate almost independently, don't they, even though they use the same name?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is, of course, this, I would almost call it games of allegiance to one or the other larger international group, and also support coming from those groups. But at the end of the day, those are very independent organizations operating on the ground with a very flexible and horizontal or type of organization.
Meanwhile, Boko Haram, they had almost but disappeared at one stage, and they seem to have grown over time. Has there been a reason or an explanation why they've been able to regroup in this way?
Well, when you look at the figures and really the steep decrease over the past 5 years globally, almost minus 60% in the global impact of terrorism, this has come from two main, I would say, impact from military operation or military-led operations on large groups. It's clearly in Syria and Iraq on the Islamic State, but it's also in Boko Haram. So if you would look at the evolution of the most deadly terrorist groups in the world, you would see since 2014-15 a steep decrease of the impact of those two large groups. And when you look at Boko Haram, it's clearly the impact of the military in Northeast Nigeria. Now, in the past 18 months to 2 years, this approach has changed. Clearly now, the Nigerian authorities and the Nigerian military have adopted a new tactic of what is called super camps, so basically not being spread over the entire terrain, but regrouping in larger camps. And therefore, they cannot have a permanent same impact on Boko Haram throughout the entire region. And I guess that's one of the reasons why Boko Haram has now the capability to become more influential, and together with Boko Haram, other groups in the region.
I remember as far back as 2008 reporting about militant groups in Maiduguri causing havoc there. What is it about this area to the northeast of the country that seems to be fertile ground for this kind of militancy?
Well, of course, the focus of Boko Haram is in this region, and you clearly see also that it's a region that is connected to many other countries in the sub-region in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, when you look at figures for the use of violence, for the absence of peace, and many other dimensions of, I would say, destabilization and the use of violence and the use of terrorism as a certain form of violence, this is widespread over the entire continent, and we clearly have seen this continued evolution, unfortunately, in the past indexes that we have produced. For example, when you look at the 10 countries that increased the most in the impact of terrorism on their soil, 7 would come from sub-Saharan Africa, and Nigeria today is still 4th on the global ranking of the Global Terrorism Index, behind countries like Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq, still all involved in a large conflict. So it's the first and...
Hello, Mr. Stroobants, are you still there? All right, it looks like we
really broad approach, governance and other approaches that are a reason why violence can emerge and also crystallize into terrorism.
All right, so Boko Haram militants slaughtered 22 farmers working in irrigation fields near Maiduguri last month in 2 separate incidents. Tell us about the timing. Has COVID-19 played a role at all in the lull before this, or what is happening?
Well, when we look at COVID-19, it has a clear impact, and especially it has a clear impact on existing socio-economic factors that could lead to violence. And COVID-19 is exacerbating, it's really putting a magnifying glass on those socio-economic impacts. What I would look at is clearly also competition for resources and access to resources At the Institute for Economics and Peace, we have produced an ecological threat register, and we have identified really 2 zones that we consider to be hotspots for the impact of ecological threats: access to water, access to food. And I guess that's also one of the dimensions that could create violence destabilization, which is a fertile ground for such groups then to become more active.
All right, Mr. Stroobants, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and giving us some insights on this very dangerous situation in northeastern Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right, so that's Director of Operations for Europe and the Middle East and North Africa at the Institute for Economics and Peace, Serge Stroobants. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more for you on The Globe.